Welcome. I'm Kinetic Symphony. I hunt down and report on weird and true mysterious stories, from glitches to the paranormal. Would you like even more content? Here's my Patreon. Now onto the stories. Case file number 1220, written by JQB10, The Strange Tiny Man. So this happened probably 5 years ago. I was asleep in my room when my eyes suddenly opened at about 2:30 a.m. I was wide awake, like wide awake. My senses were heightened, and it felt like someone or something was in my room. In the darkness, I saw an outline of something underneath my desk. It was almost like a really tiny man, maybe a foot tall, give or take. At this point, I'm totally perplexed, but not really scared until I see it start to move out from under my desk and across my room. The light switch is right next to my bed, so I decided that in one motion I was going to turn on the light switch and jump on this thing the second it got near my bed. This thing gets near my bed, but I messed up and fumbled with the light switch and missed it when I dove at it. But I crap you not, I watched this freaking thing through my bedroom wall. I just sat on my bed trying to figure out what the hell happened. Now my brother had the room right next to mine. Right behind the wall this thing went through. About 10 minutes later, my brother knocks on my door and comes in. The first words out of his mouth were, "Did you happen to see a little tiny human-like thing in here a little bit ago?" I was pretty shocked and I told him that I indeed had. He replied with, "Well, I just watched something dart across my room and it looked like it came from the wall and then it disappeared through the wall and outside." To say I was stunned would be an understatement, but I also was thrilled that I didn't have psychosis. But a little while later, perhaps a year passes, and I'm driving in my car and I'm listening to some late-night radio host, no idea who, and he had a guest on. The guest proceeds to describe something that happened to him, and it was almost exactly what my brother and I experienced. I haven't done much research on this, but if any of you have experienced this little man or whatever the hell it was, I would love to hear about it. Case notes file 1220, The Strange Tiny Man. So this sounds similar to a goblin or a gnome. Makes you wonder how many strange creatures of common lore exist, but somehow manage to cloak themselves, almost never being seen. Is this an ability, or do they keep to themselves well out of sight most of the time? Maybe they can't actually physically cloak themselves or have like a cloak of invisibility, but they just never come near humans. And if that's the latter case, that's true, what the hell was it doing in some random house's room? Was it just hungry or something? Pretty, odd, but kind of cool as well. I wouldn't mind meeting a strange shiny man as long as they're not aggressive. Which they didn't seem to be. Almost sounded more like he was confused. Creepy file number 104, written by Hirohina, The Power of Fear. 2 days ago, I'm working as a night receptionist in a hotel. A guy came in asking for a room, a neat guy, my height and size, wearing a 3-piece suit, well-shaved and freshly cut hair. The dude seems pretty pissed, but nothing out of the ordinary. It's 4 a.m. on a Saturday. Something in me just flipped. Every single cell of my body was screaming to me that the guy was absolutely dangerous, and I was terrified. I'm 150 kilograms. I'm often the kind that would make you uncomfortable with my big beard. My hands were shaking. There was a voice in my head telling me, "Don't let that man come near you, or stay in the hotel at all. Make him leave now." Emergency mode activated. I bullcrapped my way around telling him that we had no spare room for the night, due to an event that happened nearby. The guy was pissed. He told me his wife threw him out, that he didn't have anywhere to go, and that he was dead drunk. Brain just said, if you let him in, he will either kill himself in the room, or put everything on fire. I managed to discourage him from insisting on staying, but wouldn't take my advice to call the police to help him that night, and I didn't insist. I feel a bit bad that he left in his state, but this was the first time I felt sheer terror at the sight of someone. It was totally unexplainable. Case notes for file 104, The Power of Fear. So there's no follow-up on exactly what happened or would have happened if you let him stay, but I trust your instincts. I know I trust my own. I've never been in a situation where nerves spiked to the extent you described, but when I was 19, I had left home from Canada and was just off the Greyhound in Florida at 2 a.m. in downtown Orlando. Not a great place to be at that time. I was walking around and I knew no one. Some big guy approaches me asking me for cigarettes, but I knew if he got close, something bad would happen, or at least that was the impression, so I just ran. I was always a pretty small guy, so I ran fast. He was shouting, but I can't for the life of me remember what it was he was saying. Anyways, I've said it a few times on the channel, but it bears reinforcing. Always trust your instincts. The worst case is someone didn't get a room, but the worst case in the idea that he did get it, well, much worse, as you say, maybe burning the whole place down. Sometimes it's not worth the risk. Bonus file written by Etherlilac, the Victorian Ghost. My husband worked for a small old folks' home. They only had 3 residents, and his aunt ran the place. I had college classes nearby and would often come hang out for a few hours at the end of his shift and visit with the residents. One night, my husband got the residents to bed and went downstairs to collect his paycheck while I turned off the lights. As I reached the top of the stairs, I turned to look into the hallway leading to the residents' rooms. Standing outside the room of one of the residents was a woman. She was wearing an old pale green Victorian-style dress and had her ear pressed to the door. I opened my mouth to say something, and she looked directly at me, put a finger to her lips, and shushed me. I turned and practically fell down the stairs. When I got to the owner's office, she took in the expression on my face and said, "You saw the woman in green." Not a question, a statement. I confirmed, and she asked whose room she was interested in. When I told her, she nodded and sighed. The next morning, the owner called us to let us know that the target resident was found comatose in her bed. She passed away later that day. Case notes for the bonus file, the Victorian Ghost. So it makes logical sense that an old folks' home would have a heavier presence of spirits. One thing that makes me wonder about quantum immortality only working if there's at least one copy of yourself in another universe somewhere else. But if you reach the end of the line, where all other copies have passed away from old age, let's say, then you're truly at the end of the line, the last life. What happens after that, the last life is dead? Is becoming a spirit guaranteed then? Do we wake up in the real world, take off the VR headset, and go again? Are we judged in some religious sense, destined for heaven or hell, or some other afterlife? These are questions that are truly unknowable. You can have faith in one, but you can't truly know, as in the same way we can know about gravity or Dave being on my head. They're just answers we can't draw on until we make that final crossing ourselves, which is one reason why I'm very apprehensive to do that. I'd rather just stick around here for a good long while anyways. We'll see. Now time for the quote of the day. I never know how much of what I say is true. Bette Midler. What I draw from this is that it's not that the person is intentionally lying. It's that, maybe a better way to frame it is, I don't know how much I say is accurate. I always try to say the truth, but the world is so complex, it's hard to know what is the truth. You can try to be as accurate, tossing darts on the dartboard, and you want to get as close to the center as possible, but sometimes you don't even know where the center is. Sometimes it's not a dartboard, it's dart balloons, and they're floating all over the place, and they seem to be shifting. So you have to take in information as you can, and then try to accurately. The best thing you can do is try to tell the truth, as much as you can understand it. Just be as accurate as possible, and if you make mistakes, just be open to correcting them. That's why I like debates and discussions, and I think that is a problem today, where people tether being right with this quality of their own essence. Like if they're wrong, then it diminishes them. No. Now, if you're wrong and know you're wrong and keep pretending like you're right, that is a diminishment of yourself. And it makes it harder and harder to admit that you're wrong because you know you're lying about it. If you just didn't know and you made a mistake and you accepted that, it's like, oh, I was wrong. This is new information. Clearly I was wrong. You update it and now you're better for it. But people have so much ego, and ego isn't the same thing as pride. Pride being proud of things you know that are actually true or things you've done that are accomplishments, that's great. But ego is where it transcends into more like hubris, where You can't be wrong. And they say pride is a sin, but I think it's more hubris. I think that's what's intended by this sin, right? It's not being proud of things you've accomplished. It's being proud of or being immune from humility. Being immune from the possibility that you could be wrong or you're not the best in the world. No one is. So you have to be open to just accepting that there are things you don't know, and you may try to tell the truth, but you won't always be accurate. And that's okay. We're just human. We live in a game where there's information everywhere, and yet knowing what's true and what isn't is almost impossible. It requires so much effort. So in a meandering way to say it, try to tell the truth, and if you realize that you're wrong, admit it, and you're better for it. Everyone is better for it. Like the video, subscribe, hit the bell. Kinetic Symphony signing off.